episode 5 of the Vampire Lestat, there are so many things they did right. And then there are some things that made me go, huh? Welcome back, everyone. We are here today to talk about the Vampire Lestat, episode 5, New York. That's right, we're finally going to New York, and there is a lot of stuff that goes down, so I cannot wait to discuss it with you. We're finally working on that album, baby. Magnus asked, and here we go. But before we get into this, I have a question for you. I want to know, who is your favorite character in the Immortal Universe or in the Vampire Chronicles? Books, the show, the movies, whatever you want to pick. Let me know down in the comments below and let me know why you love them. All right, let's talk about this episode. And I think we have to start off by discussing one of the biggest elements in it. And that, of course, is Akasha. She's been alluded to many times in this season alone. And finally, she is here. So, how do I feel about Akasha? Well, we have Sheila Atim playing her, who one was in an episode of Drunk History, which is a show that I absolutely adore. The other thing is, she was also in The Woman King. You may have seen her in Multiverse of Madness, which I actually liked that movie. And she also returned in Marvel Zombies to voice the character of Sarah again in that. So she's been around. I'm familiar with her a little bit, but I've never seen her take on a role like this personally. So I am very excited to see what she does with Akasha. And so far, I think I'm here for it. Now, I'm not here for necessarily everything we're doing with this time period with Akasha. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through, but Sheila as Akasha so far I'm liking. I think for the most part, you know, she's mostly in kind of her statue form. Those who must be kept are described as being like statues in appearance because they don't move, they don't breathe, and their skin is almost like a polished stone. And I love that in this, they still went with almost an adaptation that is similar to Queen of the Damned. Although in Queen of the Damned, there are this white polished stone, which I think was such a weird choice, to be honest. I like that they're doing more of like an ebony stone in this. However, for me in the books, I always did picture them as just people who are in a very intense tableau. So they look like statues. They look like living statues. However, them being stone is fine. It doesn't bother me or anything like that. We don't get a ton of characterization from her either. We only really get a little taste. We get her speaking telepathically, speaking slowly. Obviously for Akasha, time does not matter. And then we also get this moment where she sort of calls Lestat into her in this moment where he loses his temper and drinks from him and offers him her blood, which is very powerful. She is the seed, as Marius says, of vampires. She is where this begins, at least as far as I know. Like I said, I haven't read the Atlantis stuff. I hear there's some more origin stuff in the Atlantis book. I'm going to get there through my reread at some point. But yes, so the characterization I thought was quite good. I also feel that that moment where Akasha, after being awakened by Lestat's blood and by offering her own to him in this bond, there is the questions that he has in his mind that are awakening her, and she's kind of giving these answers, and she's saying she is the answer. She is the answer to all these questions. And we're hearing the name Amel a ton. Amel is going to be really important to the vampire lore, so I like that they're already name dropping that. It's interesting because I knew in this episode that we were going to go here because we saw in the previews for the episode at the end of episode 4 a little bit of Marius. And I wasn't sure, of course, that that was going to be our Marius. Of course, there was a part of me as someone that watched Talamasca that Jason Schwartzman would somehow secretly be revealed as Marius because I just feel like he's a great cast for that character. But I like what they did with Marius here. In this episode, he is played by Christopher Heyerdahl, and I think he does a good job, although I do feel, I don't know, I guess I just feel that Marius, the casting is a little safe. We don't really get too much of him though yet, so we haven't really had a lot of time to see either of these characters cook. I really like the set that they put us in with Marius's collections of things that he's been showing off to those who must be kept throughout the years. And I do think it's a little weird, though, that we've made the choice of Marius digs up Lestat at the behest of Akasha, rescuing him, helping Lestat, and then just is like, you know what, I'm going to keep you here. You're taking over now. You're the new keeper. Good luck. And that's basically it, and then he dips. However, I guess Marius would be pretty upset. I think that's kind of what's going on here. Is it showcased as well as it could have been if that's what's happening? Not really. I feel like Marius is a little frustrated, maybe a little tired, but he still seems to have this reverence, this care for this responsibility. And without really vetting Lestat, he just kind of leaves him there. Though I guess if Akasha tells you to do a thing, you just do it, you don't really question it, you just do it. So that's one of my biggest issues, I think, with this episode, is just the amount of time that Lestat is there. In the books, it's really only a few days, and there still is this great imprint that I think Akasha leaves on Lestat and that he leaves on her. But seeing him here for these 10 years, and as someone who says, I don't really play music, when I feel like at this point, Lestat still would. I think that Nikki would have left that imprint on him. And as a vampire, there are many things he can pick up and learn quite easily and be quite good at. It's kind of easier to pick up skills, and because you have all the time to spend, and just because your instincts allow you to notice things more easily. So this idea that he hasn't really been playing music before, he's kind of new to that, and yet he was called to this role. He's not really in a place where he's going to be good at handling it. But I do like the idea of it giving him new life. After hiding away, after Gabrielle leaves him, which does happen in the books, he sort of comes back to life and is given this new purpose. And it's what motivates him to keep going. So that is kind of a cool idea for how they did this. I just don't think it needs to be a whole 10 years. I think it could have been a shorter period. I think it takes away how much Lestat really did not know Akasha. So later on, with everything that happens, there is a bit of this rose-tinted glasses view initially that Lestat has of her, but I don't know. Maybe we're doing something a little bit different, and maybe they are going to add some more layers to Akasha. It seems like they might, but I think in the end she still has to be a villain. That's very important. So I just hope we keep that direction. I'm sure we will. The other thing is we continue along with Louis' side quest in this episode, and I was a little bit disappointed to find out that the side quest is really more about Lestat, I think, than it is about Louis. But we'll see where they take Louis in the next episode. Maybe there's some more Louis stuff coming, and we do get some really emotional moments with him. So there's still some good stuff in there. It's just when I realized that the whole motivation sort of what's going on with Louis and Lestat, looking into the eyes of Regina and realizing, yeah, no, this is not Claudia, because Claudia's eyes were so different. And then that inspiring him to sing this song, I thought, one, it takes a little bit of agency, I think, away from Louis, because I thought this was going to be more of a Louis thing. But two, the song is so good. The song is so Lestat to me. And I think they nailed it. They nailed this beautiful song about the loss. And what it is it feels like the opening up of a person who has been trying to mask their feelings and who has been using music as expression, but expression of the way that they would like to be perceived, as opposed to the honest truth of who they are and everything that they've been through. And this finally feels like Lestat really opening up. It's really kind of an epiphany moment for him. So even though it takes a little bit away from it being Louis' story in this show, in this season, I kind of still loved it, to be honest with you. And what I love is that I think that's going to be the end of Regina, and I'm fine with that, because I was worried we were going to go into some really crazy places, and I'm kind of glad we didn't. And yet I still think there's more that we can do with Louis, and there's still some cool things we're exploring with the character. So we'll see what happens next, but we got such a great song out of that whole thing. So I have no regrets about that. Also, the whole journey of Lestat trying to make this album and some of the things that he does were absolutely excellent. Him making them play like over 60 times the same thing. Him risking his own life by going out into the sun and burning himself to get this kind of death sound, this kind of death rattle recorded. I just thought that's actually so Lestat. He would do that for the perfect sound. Only, of course, for everyone else to be like, sounds terrible. What are we even doing? And there are some changes that are made in this episode. One, we got to talk about the fate of Ankle here. And Ankle is Akasha's paramour, her consort. The other statue on the slab that unfortunately is broken, has been messed up. And of course, Marius has his own story for why this happened. And he talks about the one night that vampires burn because he left Akasha and Ankle out in the sun. Now, he says, I think, that it was an accident, which is a little different than the books, but may not be the true story. And he also talks about how Ankle's death was kind of an accident, which is also not what happens in the books, but it might not be the whole story. We might be getting lies told to us. However, either way, Ankle is alive later on, and I don't even know if I say Ankle. I've read it in a book for many years. Is it Ankle or is it Ankil? It might be Ankil, so I'm going to apologize if I'm saying it wrong. Please just remember, the books were like one of the first things for me, so I'm very much a reader, which might mean that I've created pronunciations for things in my mind. And I don't think it's like a huge deal. I think you actually kind of need that to happen for Lestat to have been there for 10 years, because otherwise, I don't think that would have worked out if Ankle was still around. However, I also feel like we're losing a little bit of the motivation of Akasha in what happens with Ankle. There's some things that were maybe missing from her character a little bit, doing it this way. But I'm still not 100% sure that Marius is telling the truth about all of this. So there might be more to the story. We'll have to wait and see. Overall, we've skipped a few things. We've changed a few things. But the broad strokes of the story are still there. And I've seen some people critiquing the show, saying that it's just a little too broad, which, fair. I mean, the Vampire Lestat is a lot. It's a thick book. There's a lot of pages. There's a lot to it. And I don't think we could get through all of it in this show, to be honest, with how many episodes we have. So I think it's fine that we're parsing it down a little bit, and they are adding in some really cool elements to the show and to the characters that are part of who they are, I think, still in the books. The heart and soul of everything for me is still being maintained for the most part, so I don't mind the broad strokes. And in fact, whenever I think we might be missing something that's really important, or there's something that we really skipped, it's really more that we just rushed through things a little bit. But skipping things, they haven't really skipped anything that's super integral to Lestat's story. So I'm fine with it. I think ultimately I am fine with it. Of course, we are mentioning and setting up so many things to come, which I'm very excited about. And I know they've already said they're going to do Lestat and they're going to do Queen of the Damned, and that's the plan. And I don't know if we're going, oh yeah, they're going to do Tale of the Body Thief, which, by the way, if we end on Tale of the Body Thief, that's going to be a wild ending to this, and I kind of can't wait. But also, don't be cowards, AMC. Do Memnoch the Devil. Give us what we want. Give us one of the weirdest books in the bunch. And I would just like to put it out there, you know, if you need some more people, AMC, please call me, call my agents. I would love to be a part of this show. Please, if anyone is watching from AMC, just give me a chance to audition. This would be a dream job for me. And I have all of the knowledge that you need to help bring these characters to life. And I'm totally cool with the vision. I'm loving it so far. In fact, I think this episode might be my new favorite episode, because the way I just realized in this episode, and this feels really dumb, but I just realized the way that we're using the music to tell the story of Lestat and kind of operating in this gap where Lestat has awoken and he's working on the music before this big concert, which is a huge part in Queen of the Damned, which we may still end this season with, even though it is Queen of the Damned. I think it's really smart because we're using the music for Lestat to go back and go through his history and revisit moments in his past to ultimately decide who he is and what he wants in the world. Isn't that what people do when they make music? They look inside themselves to figure out who they are and what they want and what matters most to them. And that is exactly what we're getting in this show. And I just think it is the perfect framing for something like the Vampire Lestat. I was nervous initially. I thought, is it too much Queen of the Damned? But honestly, at this point, now that we're at episode 5, I do not think so at all. However, there is some implications that we are making some interesting changes. Like, is the band going to become vampires? That doesn't happen in the books. But I'd be curious to see what they do with that if they do that. I actually think Lestat not having them be vampires is important because Lestat knows that it is a way to kind of keep them safe, somewhat. Or a better way to keep them safe. Considering that he's going out and spreading all these vampire secrets, which vampires don't usually like, if you weren't aware. I think they explained that pretty well in the first episode, but yeah, vampires don't usually like that very much. That's all I have to say about this one. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Let me know what you think of episode 5 down in the comments below. Are you here for it? Are you not? Why not? What did you think of this song? And stay tuned because once we have a full album, I cannot wait to listen to all of it and then just even do a review of the album here. I think that'll be really fun. Thank you so much again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And a friendly reminder, if you ever want to watch my reaction to the episodes, you can do so as a member here on YouTube, or you can watch the full reactions over on my Patreon, patreon.com/vampex13. Maybe I'll see you over there. If not, hopefully I'll see you again here. That's all I got. Until next time, friends, stay nerdy. Bye. And if you love hearing me talk about the Vampire Lestat, I love to do it. You can watch more of that over here.